What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmaker's Corner podcast. I'm your host for today, Simon Boyanos, aka Coach V. It is currently, when I'm recording this intro, February 11th, 2026, when I'm recording this one. And on this episode, we are bringing you just a couple more season previews. I know the season already started, but because we have already done a rankings episode, and then we are saving our recap episode for next Tuesday, so make sure you tune in for that. We have an open day, so we're going to go ahead and talk about some teams here who was able to get us some information about their squad. We got two teams who are NAIA squads, and then we have one that is a D3, not currently a varsity varsity team yet. They are currently under club status, but they will be under varsity status next season and will be competing in a conference. And so I figured I might as well go ahead and cover them. And I'm really excited about this one. It should be a good one. We'll talk about these programs, their coaches, key players on the roster, and then go ahead and peep the schedule coming up. So there you go there. Without further ado, let's just hop into the football. All right, it is February 10th, 2026 when I am recording this segment. And on this segment, we're going to talk about Texas Wesleyan University, an NAIA program that will be having their inaugural season here in 2026. They will be a first-year program, like I said, competing in their first ever season. And I'm excited to talk about this one. I'm from the DFW area. I grew up over there. And I do know some people who were able to help out with girls flag football, women's flag football being developed in that area. So I'm really, really excited to talk about this brand new program that will be making its debut this season. And so let's go ahead and talk about the coach here. The head coach of this program is Sakina Lambert, and hopefully I am saying that right, or Kina Lambert is what I believe she goes by, but previously served as Fort Worth's youth sports programmer and flag football administrator. Really got a lot of girls and boys flag football teams started in the area. Collaborated with Angelica Grayson, by the way, somebody we covered on this podcast back when she was the head coach of the University of St. Mary, and found a lot of success over there. I believe nowadays she is with the Los Angeles Chargers and is the director of flag football, or football development, I believe is her official title. But Angelica Grayson is also a DFW native as well, and I actually got the opportunity to talk to her a little bit a couple years ago, and we talked about developing a girls flag football in this area. So very familiar with what she's done, and obviously Coach Lambert here has worked with her to develop flag football and identify emerging flag football talent in the area. She was also the former director of basketball operations at Florida State here, and so now she is going to go ahead and lead one of the first ever Texas flag football programs. I believe this is the first ever varsity one. There's another team that we're going to talk about later on this episode here that could make that first claim, but I think this is definitely the first ever varsity program that is offering scholarships, I want to say. So we're going to cover them on this episode, but she is more than qualified to head up this program. And on top of that, she has some assistant coaches to help her out as well here in Shambrisha Orange and Rodney Seastruck, as well as Jalen Rogers, who will be one of their student managers for the squad. But like I said, definitely somebody who's qualified for this job, has been around the game, has helped develop, a lot of these players and leagues here in the DFW Fort Worth area. And so definitely fitting for her to lead this program here in year one. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this roster. I can't talk about every single person because, some players don't have as much film as others, but we do have a roster that is made up of mostly local talent here, which is super exciting. I see a lot of Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas in these bios here, which is always awesome to see. But let's go ahead and talk about, I guess, some of the key players, because I can't talk about every single player, but I do want to highlight highlight the key players. And actually, before we do that, I'm just going to list off all the players that is currently listed for this 2026 roster, starting with the sophomore out of Fort Worth, Texas, Ariel Duran, a wide receiver, cornerback, running back. You also have a freshman out of Dallas here, wide receiver, corner, running back, center in Giselle Garcia. You have Von Aiden, originally from Ontario, Canada, listed at center, safety, and punter, but I believe went to high school in the DFW area. You have rusher Carla Gayton, sophomore from Fort Worth. You have a freshman from Dallas and wide receiver Addison Prayetta, or Perida, I want to say. You have Tiana Johnson, a wide receiver, safety, center, sophomore out of Fort Worth, Texas here, but she is also a transfer, which we're gonna talk about. And then you have an athlete here from Las Vegas, Nevada, a familiar face here in Michaela Nunez. This is a player that we have covered for multiple seasons in the past, coming out of Midland University as well. You have a quarterback here, I think the only player listed at just quarterback, in Destiny Hernandez Jr. out of Fort Worth, Texas. You have a wide receiver out of Fort Worth, Texas in Isabel Ibarra. Out of Fort Worth again, this time a sophomore, you have a rusher in Delilah Ojeda. Out of North Richland Hills, Texas, you have the freshman wide receiver, safety, in Jocelyn McRae. Out of Dallas, Texas, another freshman, you have a wide receiver, quarterback, and safety in Sanaya Gully. And then out of Chicago, Illinois originally, you have a freshman, safety, wide receiver in Ava Alexander. So there you go. That is the roster here for Texas Wesleyan going into year one. Not the biggest roster, but you have a solid one of 13 for the first ever team for Texas Wesleyan here. And let's talk about the key players. First off, I want to start with the transfers. Let's start with Michaela Nunez here. Had a very productive career for Midland, played wide receiver, played quarterback, and honestly found a lot of success at both, playing in the KCAC, which is one of the toughest conferences for women's college flag football. And she's somebody who's well versed at both positions. I think she can excel pretty much anywhere. I think she could also play on the defensive side and be a key contributor on that side of the football as well. And so to land a player of this caliber for what I believe might be her last year of women's flag football, we'll see. That's massive, right? You got a player who not only you can look at as a veteran leader having all that experience, but somebody who could go out there and just make plays wherever you put her. There is a reason why she is the only player on this roster listed at just athlete. You could play her wherever, and she's going to be big time for a first-year program playing against other first-year teams or very young programs. She's definitely somebody who could put up numbers for them. So that's a massive pickup for Texas Wesleyan. Now, another transfer they have, she actually played her freshman year at Alabama State, which is a D1, but it is Tiana Johnson, who will be coming back home and will be playing wide receiver, safety, and center for Texas Wesleyan. You know, this is another player who doesn't have as much experience or as much success as Michaela Nunez, only playing 1 year, but she is definitely somebody who has played against high-level talent, and that's something that you definitely cannot take for granted. She has experience. I know Alabama State has played more so East Coast teams over in Florida and Georgia, and so she knows how they get down. This is another player that you could expect to dominate here early on as far as touches go, both on offense and probably defense as well. Now, we have a couple other players. These are players that I was able to find film on. You have Giselle Garcia, who was one of the first players out of Dallas to receive a scholarship for flag football. Wide receiver, corner, running back, center, does it all. She'll be coming in and is one of the players that really benefited from the pilot programs down in Texas, so she'll be joining this squad here, staying at home. You have Von Aiden, who played for Texas Fury, their DFW branch, and I believe nearby Benbrook. She's a very reliable check-down option at center, and with receivers like a Nunez, like a Tiana Johnson, having somebody who can be reliable in the short game, that is going to be massive. And so it's good to know that you have a reliable pass catcher to kind of help round out this group right here. So there you go there. Now, just kind of sticking. Actually, let's move on just a little bit here. Let's move on to the quarterback position, starting with Destiny Hernandez, the only player just listed at quarterback here, but she actually played in the Women's Football Alliance League, played for the Houston Energy here, and so she comes to Fort Worth to help this young team. I believe she is probably their projected starting quarterback, or at least I would consider her the projected starting quarterback. We will see. Now, they've also recruited a number of other players who have played quarterback in high school. You have Isabel Ibarra, who played quarterback, but is moving over, or at least is listed at wide receiver. She's somebody who's very shifty in space and has good acceleration, is a good athlete in general, so you really can't go wrong with moving her over. You could maybe get tricky with it if you wanted to, but like I said, right now listed at wide receiver. And is a freshman coming in for her first year. You also have Sanaya Gully, and hopefully I'm saying that name right. If I'm not, I apologize. But she is listed at wide receiver, quarterback, and safety as well, a freshman from Dallas here. Also, by the way, when I looked her up on Max Preps, listed at 5'11", here. She could definitely be somebody that could dominate certain matchups down the line and could add more versatility to this squad and help round out this team. And then last but not least, you have Ava Alexander, another player who played quarterback but is currently listed at safety and wide receiver here. And so we'll see what happens with that. But very interesting. A couple players who played quarterback in high school moving over, I have said this before, right? But you can't go wrong going with players who have played quarterback, players who are smart, who understand the game. Now, will that translate to a whole ton of success? There's only one way to find out. We'll see. You gotta play games to really find out here. But I think the core they have for year one is really not that bad. You got some players, you got a good mix of experience, of local talent as well, who are really just getting started playing flag football. And so the sky's the limit as far as potential goes for those young players. And then with your veterans, you know what you have there. You know that they're going to produce if you put them in the right situations. And so let's talk about the schedule for Texas Wesleyan here. Not playing in a conference just yet, but they will be playing a combination of NAIA teams, junior college teams, a couple D3 teams, and then some club teams here in Texas, starting with Texas Southern, who is a club team, and I believe they all played, or a lot of these Texas teams played in a tournament before, but that'll be an interesting one as they play them down in San Antonio. On that same day, they will then play Concordia in Austin, I guess in San Antonio, but they're based out in Austin here. Concordia University of Texas is what it says right here. And that is a team that we'll be talking about in a little bit. That'll be a tough squad, I'm not going to lie. That's a team who played a little bit last season. Currently, I believe, going into 2026, they are in club status, but are set to be a varsity program next year, and they've already recruited pretty decently, so that'll be an interesting team right there. Then they go ahead and play D3 Shriner University, a team who I believe is in the same conference as Concordia, so there you go there. They play club team Prairie View as well, so we'll see how that goes. Like I said, I believe they have played already. I could be mistaken. And then following that, they play a program that we are obviously familiar with in Kodey, away there. And then they'll play a Pratt that same day, Pratt Community College that same day. So definitely interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how those games go for Texas Wesleyan, two programs who are a little bit more established, but, have had some struggles in the past. Following that, they go ahead and play Southwestern. They will host Southwestern here, a team from the KCAC. Still haven't gotten the roster from Southwestern. I know there was some turnover over there, so we'll see what happens, right? But that is a program with a little bit more experience. But then they play Hendrix College. This is another program in the same boat. I believe entering year one, if not year two. And so that could be an interesting game there. I don't know if they're favored or not, but I know they do have a bigger roster, or I think they have a bigger roster than them. And then late in the season, that obviously matters when, you're playing so many games here. And then they play a Concordia and Prairie View to end the season. So all that being said, I mean, honestly, it's hard to predict what the record will be and how that will go here. They're playing a lot of first year programs, so really it's up in the air, or at least a lot of young programs here. I'm looking at a team like Concordia, who is very well coached, who has a decent amount of talent over there as well. That should be a big game here. Games against Kodey and Pratt, I mean, they're not games that are completely out of hand here. I'd even throw in Southwestern. Those aren't games that could get completely out of hand here. I mean, yes, they have been around for a couple years, but it has been a struggle over the last couple years, so I do think those are winnable. Hendricks will be an interesting one. I think, like Concordia, they're in a very similar boat there. And then the club teams, I would assume that they could beat them, but we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens. Regardless, I'm excited about this team here. Like I said, I'm from the DFW area, so I always root for Texas players, but, rooting for players from my area specifically as well in DFW, I mean, I've always done that. And so, me personally, I have a little bit of bias already, but I'm rooting for them. I'm excited to see how the season goes. I'm excited to hopefully be able to cover some games. I don't see any live stream links yet, but hopefully maybe there will be some, and we could get some access to film here to watch some games. But regardless, shout out Coach Lambert over there. Shout out the roster they have over there, and wishing them all the best of luck going into their first ever season here in 2026. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about Concordia University, Texas here, based out of Austin. At the time I am recording this, it is February 10th, 2026. And Concordia is a D3 program, like I said, out of Texas. Now, here's the interesting part about them. So they do have a plan to move up to varsity level status starting in the 2027 season. Now, they have been playing flag football since last year, 2025. That was their first year as a program. They played a couple games near the end of the college flag football season against some other squads here. But going into 2026, they play a little bit more of a full schedule, which is why I wanted to cover them. And honestly, I also wanted to cover them because they are about to be a varsity program next year, and they got some really good players over there. And I want to talk about them and this coaching staff and this program and spotlight them. Just being completely honest there, because I see what they're doing and I love what they're doing. So let's go ahead and start with this coaching staff, which is a coaching staff that we here with the podcast is very familiar with. And let's talk about their head coach first here, in Coach Keenan Hughes. He is also the director and coach of Texas Fury. He helped create the most dominant club flag football program in the country. The number of Texas Fury girls currently playing women's college flag football and dominating is astounding. You have so many great players who have continued on that legacy, and it started here with Coach Hughes and this program. And so he is joined by his son, Caden Hughes, who has also had a hand in Texas Fury and their teams here, working with their younger squads, as well as Jenny Woodward and John Woodward here, who have also been involved with Texas Fury. I believe their daughter, Jordan, plays currently, or is going to play currently, for Thomas, and is looking to have a big role for them this season. So definitely excited to watch her do her thing there, while their parents over here are volunteering and coaching for Concordia, one of the first ever women's college flag football programs in Texas. I believe currently they are the first one. They technically played last year. As far as varsity status goes, if you want to get technical about it, they don't have it just yet, so they can't quite be the first one, but they did play their first, and I mean the state's first ever women's college flag football games last season, so there is that, but this is an excellent coaching staff, have found a lot of success. I mean, this coaching staff led by Coach Hughes here is, I mean, as far as the club level goes, they may have been the most successful club coaches in the entire country. That's my opinion, right? But I'm also biased. I'm from Texas, so of course I'm going to think that way. But you could also look at their national championships as well, and the multiple players playing on the college level, and not just playing, but dominating, if we're being completely honest there. So, boom, there you go there. Great coaching staff here for Concordia. Let's go ahead and look at this roster here. Now, I'm not going to talk about every single player. I am going to real quick list off all their players, and if I mispronounce a name, I apologize here, but I want to make sure I shout out all these players. So going down the line, we have the senior from Liberty Hill High School in Texas, Alexis Solis. From Conroe, Texas here, you have Anaya Owens. From, I believe, originally from Arizona here, one of the few out-of-state players. You have Jordan Kocher, and hopefully I'm saying that right. From Houston, Texas, went to Westbury High School, Myasia Holloway. From Hutto, Texas, went to Hutto High School, obviously, Jordan Velasquez. You have a freshman here from Leander, Texas, in Lemchaha Roberts. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, but I feel like I'm not. From Austin, Texas here, local, you have Sonia Shalil. From California here, Laguna Beach, you have a junior in Shanna Brown. From Harker Heights, Texas, you have Charisma Maulolo. From Shingle Springs, California, you have Liliana Cardenas. You have another sophomore here from Austin, Texas, Isabella Farias, I want to say. From Cypress, Texas, you have a junior in J.C. Quinn. From Bay City, Texas, you have a junior in Elamada Perez. And then you have another junior from Dripping Springs, Texas, in Savannah Paxton. And so that makes up the roster, or at least the 2026 roster here for Concordia. Now let's talk about some specific players here, starting with the freshmen they are bringing in here from McNeil High School. Locally from Austin, Texas, you have Sonia Shalil here, who, by the way, was also an NFL Flag Player of the Year finalist in 2024. She was an All-American and obviously a member of Texas Fury, somebody who's helped them through a lot of success. They've won a lot of games with her leading that defense and doing her thing for them over there. She is somebody who is back with Coach Hughes here. Also, I believe listed as a captain for Concordia. I mean, she's a great player to put on the defense to help command this team. We'll see where she plays specifically. I believe it's probably going to be linebacker is what I would think. I would imagine she's not going to play rusher or anything like that. You kind of want to drop her in coverage and let her do her thing there. But this is a great player to bring in here to help command your defense and set the tone early on. As somebody who has been a part of a winning program and knows what these coaches demand out of them and knows what a good program looks for them. So extremely excited for Shalil here. This is a great pickup by Concordia, securing a world-class player in their own backyard, but regardless, she's going to go ahead and do her thing this time at home and represent Texas here. So love to see that and excited for her this season. Now talking about some other players here, you have Alexis Solis, a quarterback, played for them last season and is looking to build on a productive 2025 spring season. Got to peep a couple of her clips through other scrimmages and whatnot, and she could spin that ball. And with this coaching staff, I mean, you just gotta believe that they're gonna get their quarterback right, and they are gonna be super productive with her coming back for another year here. So really excited about that. I think she's going to go ahead and do her thing for Concordia once more. And to have a quarterback who is established, I mean, that's always big time, right? So there you go there. Now, like I said, I can't talk about every single player. They have a lot of players who are dual sport athletes, track stars, basketball, volleyball, all the things, right? But there is a player that kind of stood out to me a little bit more here in some of the film that I was able to find as I scoured through social media and the internet, looking at these players and, their backgrounds here. And Myasia Holloway is somebody who really stood out to me, has excellent hands here, player to play wide receiver in a scrimmage versus Prairie View and caught a sweet touchdown. I think she could be a big time receiver and contributor for Concordia. Currently, I believe she's going to play safety and receiver for them. Somebody who obviously has the athleticism, but the ball skills, the strong hands was something that really stood out to me. And so I am excited to see her in action with this quarterback, Solis, going into 2026 here. So there you go there. Those are just some key players that I wanted to highlight that I know this coaching staff is going to get right here. And I'm sure there's going to be other players. I mean, you have a decent amount of freshmen here that are going to step up and do their thing as well and help build this program moving forward as they do hit varsity status next season, I believe. But let's go ahead and look at this schedule. This schedule is probably, last year, they didn't really have a schedule like this, so this is the closest they've been to an actual college schedule here. And they're playing a lot of teams here in Texas for the most part. A couple NEI teams, small teams, club teams, right? To start, and I'm just going to go down the line, they play Community Christian College here in Houston. So they're going to have to go just a little bit away for that. Not the farthest, though, so they're going to play them. Following that, they go ahead and they play Kodey College, who will be coming down to Belton, Texas, over at UMHB here. Another program that I believe will be, I want to say they'll be starting next season. And so they'll be hosting both teams here. And Kodey, that's an established program. Hopefully that game is live streamed or shown somewhere, because I think that will really show where this team is playing a program like Kodey, who has been around a couple years but has struggled a couple years as well. So we'll see what happens. Then they play Texas Southern here. I believe that is their club team in Austin. They're going to play a couple teams actually here over the next couple games in Austin. They also host Texas Wesleyan, Prairie View A&M, who they played, and so they'll play Prairie View on March 6th. I assume they'll have spring break and whatnot, because then they'll play them again on the 21st, this time at Prairie View. And I believe on that same day, they play a couple other teams. They also play Arizona State's club team, who just played Grand Canyon's club team, I believe, last week. And so that'll be an interesting game right there, playing I want to say a first-year club team, maybe second year. We'll see what happens there. Then they play Texas Southern again. They play Shriner University at home, as well as Community Christian at home that same day. Following that, they go away to Shriner, going to Caryville to go play them. And then they go to Fort Worth for a couple games here about a week later, playing Hendrix College, another NAI team, I believe a first-year team, though, as well as Texas Wesleyan and Prairie View A&M once more that season. So there you go there. I mean, they're playing a lot of teams a couple of times. And I mean, this also feels like a lot of traveling going from Austin to Prairie View. I mean, I guess it's not that far. I'm mostly looking at Austin to Fort Worth, which I know could be a long trip depending on what you do, flying or driving. I assume they would probably drive, but we'll see. You know, I'm sure they could fly as well if they really, really wanted to. But either way, I mean, this is more of a complete schedule compared to last season where they didn't play as many games. So it's going to be interesting to see how this group holds up as the season goes on. There are multiple games here that they're going to have to play in a day because of the travel and the spacing and whatnot. But I think this year, like I said, we're going to really see what this program is made of, playing a, I guess, more collegiate styled schedule here. And, you know, we're going to see who rises up, who, you know, ends up being a cornerstone for them moving forward as they approach varsity status. Now, I will say this, it's going to be interesting because there are a couple teams in their conference that are good, that they're going to play against this season. I believe Shriner is in that conference. And then I want to say the UMHB as well is in their conference as well. They're not playing them, right? They're not playing them. I know they have a coach over there, but they will be playing them next season here. And so this is just a start. I know there's going to be a lot more Texas college flag football teams next season as more have committed to that and recruiting has already kicked up. But for Concordia to get going, for teams like Texas Wesleyan to get going, that's absolutely massive. You have two teams from some of the biggest cities in Texas, already recruiting for women's college flag football, which is amazing to see. And, I'm going to go ahead and take this moment here. I don't want to call it taking a shot, but I got to go ahead and call out UIL here over in Texas. Because honestly, I don't know when I will get another opportunity to do this. But UIL, in case you are a listener and you're not familiar with Texas high school sports and other, extracurriculars over there, but they are the governing body over there. They're like what CHSAA is here in Colorado, FASA for Florida, GHSSA, right, for Georgia, all that same stuff. It's basically UIL in Texas, right? And they have not sanctioned girls flag football as a varsity sports for their high school teams. Instead, have opted to continue, this is what they said, opted to continue studying the proposal due to the rapid growth in Texas. And like I said, have not committed to making it an official varsity sport in the state of Texas. Now, excuse me for the language, but how the hell do you not have football as an official varsity sport in the state of Texas? Now, you have boys football, but let's keep it a buck. Girls flag football is still football. You are not a real Texan if you do not support girls flag football, because that means you are not supporting football in Texas. And I just got to keep it a buck. It's idiotic. How are there two college programs, at least more than two college flag football programs, but not yet an official varsity girls flag football team? Official. You have teams who are playing in leagues, right? It's a little bit separate. DFW area, I know the Cowboys are doing their thing. Houston area, I'm sure they're doing their thing over there as well. But not technically official because UIL hasn't sanctioned it as a varsity sport. Of course, you have club teams as well on the high school level who are doing their thing. But like I said, not UIL sanctioned. So with that being said, there is no excuse for UIL not having girls flag football becoming a sanctioned sport. And I'm calling on them to go ahead and make it a sanctioned sport. Now, is that going to matter? I don't know. Probably not. I got to shout out Coach Hughes and their coaching staff. I know they've been pushing for it for years, and their athletes over at Texas Fury have been pushing for it and have been taking on that battle. But I'm just keeping it a buck because, like I said, I don't know when else I'm going to be able to publicly just voice this opinion. It is idiotic that girls flag football is not a sanctioned sport. Football in Texas should always be a sanctioned sport. That is our culture. That is in their blood. These players are going out of state, and they are showing why they are the next generation of great football players. But for the UIL to not sanction it on the high school level and add potentially another great chapter to Texas high school football, I don't know. And so that's why I wanted to make sure I highlighted Concordia. I know they're not technically a varsity team yet on the collegiate levels, but they will be next season as far as that goes. And they're going to compete on the NCAA D3 level. And I love that for them. They are giving Texas girls an opportunity to go and develop at home, compete for their home state, but most importantly, continue the pressure on the UIL to sanction girls flag football in Texas. You get to a point where you have too many flag football players that are succeeding on the college level, succeeding on the international level, by the way, playing for the Olympic team, representing the United States. playing football, but you are telling me that they cannot do that for their home high school team. Let that sink in for a little bit here. Shout out Coach Hughes. Shout out Concordia. I'm extremely excited for them this season. I am wishing them all the best of luck. I know I'm biased, but the more success these Texas college women's flag football teams have, I feel like, theoretically, the more pressure will be on the UIL to go ahead and sanction girls flag football here in Texas. Then again, I don't know. It should have been sanctioned by now. And there's more than enough interest for that to happen. And I just don't understand. I don't get it. But I'm calling on UIO to go ahead and get it sanctioned. If you are a supporter of the podcast, I hope that you go ahead and send your emails, messages, whatever, pull the strings, whatever you got to do to get UIO to sanction girls flag football in the state of Texas as a varsity sport. It is time. It's time for a new chapter in Texas football. And that is also what Concordia is doing, introducing a new chapter in Texas college football. And once more, wishing them all the best of luck as they enter this 2026 spring season.
Hey, y'all. It is Cody Stauffer here with the Playmakers Corner podcast, and we got yet one more little preview that we're going to try and sneak in here, and that is thanks to the roster being sent in from Arizona Christian University. This is going to be a new program here for the NAIA level, so we're excited to talk about some of these squads here, and they're going to compete in the GCAC here, and I think that it's going to be very interesting with some California and Arizona teams in the mix, especially one that has the offensive prowess that I think that this team is going to have. But let's go ahead and start with the coach, as we do with these new programs. It is Michael Macagnano here. He coached at Hamilton in Arizona, helped lead them to a state championship, and also has been the defensive coordinator for the Arizona State club team as well. He's coached in the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, as well as club in the scene, succeeding both regionally and nationally. He's been in the game for, if I remember reading correctly, about at least a half decade here, if not a little bit longer here. And who better to start with player introductions than his very own daughter, who helped get him into this here, Katarina, aka Cece Macagnano here, who already has some college experience to go along with the rest of her resume here. Her resume, very impressive. As I mentioned, for coach, he coached in the U.S. Army All-American Bowl, and Katarina was also there as a U.S. Army All-American. She's a state champ. She's a two-time Elite 11 invite. She was an all-conference player, an offensive player of the year, and those are just a few of the things that line her accomplishments here. She's got a strong arm here. She's playing decisive. She's reading the field well. She's playing with timing and poise, at least in the film that we have of her so far. And I think that this offense is going to be a very vertical offense here, and one that's going to take advantage of windows that she can achieve great throws in. Now, she did play, as I mentioned here, and that was at Warner University. She notched a 12 touchdown to 5 interception ratio, rushed for a couple of more touchdowns, and had a winning record to her name in kind of a split quarterback role. So, turned heads, made plays and whatnot, and brings that experience to Arizona Christian, which I think could make them a very interesting squad early on here. Continuing on, though, we got a few receivers here that are very, very interesting here to make this offense so explosive. I'm looking at Michaela Navarro, Anelli Alba here. There's also another one here in Genesis Morales, and you also bring in a Selah Childress here. And there's other offensive expertise on the field, but these are the big ones that I was able to watch some film on here. Navarro playing with Alpha Titans, great instincts, adjusts to the ball super well. She makes tough catches by the boundaries. She's a ball hawk if you need her to play on defense. And she's a speedster who just kept finding ways of getting behind the defense, big strides, and just has a very solid catch radius here. But if you're thinking of doubling her and not letting her get behind you, you're going to have a really bad time with a Nelly Alba here. Somebody who cannot be guarded one-on-one. Very physical receiver. Does attack the football very, very well. Does it without fear. And, she also stretches the field very, very well. And I think that plays awesomely to Macagnano's strengths here, to CeCe's strengths, to just make this offense very explosive, I think, here in year one. You also bring in a Selah Childress here, over 1,100 all-purpose yards her senior year, 4 touchdowns on offense, incredible acceleration, does not waste any time getting up to full speed, and can take very short plays and make them into big ones. Or, in that case, with those abilities, you also get the benefit of, picking up more yards than maybe you were planning and being able to sustain drives that way. Genesis here, Morales, she is listed out wide receiver / cornerback here. She attacks the football. She puts herself out there. But I think that defensively, she's very interesting as she recorded 11 interceptions her senior year. Once again, attacking the football. None of these athletes are afraid to meet the moment. And so I think that's very interesting here. We turn to the defensive side of the football here and take a look at cornerback Carly Reeves. She recorded 2 interceptions and 12 pass deflections, as well as 68 tackles in high school here. I'm also looking at who is listed at corner as well, as Jada Griego here. Was offered by 7 other universities, including the likes of Warner here. She's a versatile playmaker who really came to life as a turnover machine, just being in the right place at the right time and reading the quarterback's eyes. And, I think just positionally understands the trajectory of the football and the decision-making of the offensive side of the ball. Now, I really like this Alana D'Alessio here being listed at linebacker, as she played cornerback in her film, but her strength is coming downhill, coming hard down towards the ball with consistent and constant flag pulls. That's why that they're putting her at linebacker. She's a sure flag puller here. It's very authoritative every time she fills and pulls. Just reads very well, knows who's around her, and knows how to get to the spot and get a flag pull here. You also have a Jashana Hunton here. Watching through her film, she has a bit more experience on offense from what I could tell, so it's interesting to see her listed at linebacker, but she's somebody who you could also throw in on the offensive side of the ball. She's going to be able to make some catches. Hopefully she brings those instincts as well to the defensive side of the ball and attacks those footballs over the middle and forces some turnovers, I think is what the vision is there. And then Shay Gonzalez here, she's just a dog on both sides of the ball, sees the field super well, has scored very long touchdowns by just finding the open pocket as a receiver and as a safety. Once again, just reads the quarterback's eyes, doesn't let anything behind her, and, keeps everything in front of her, which is what you want out of your safety position, is that nice mix of, being conservative and smart, but also attacking the football when the opportunity presents itself. There's a couple of other transfers here that didn't seem to see the most action at the positions that they're listed at, like Angelica Ruiz Salazar, who's transferring in from Bryant and Stratton. Not a whole lot, but obviously has been around that level, that high level of college flag football. And then you also have Kayla Nguez. I'm so sorry, Kayla, that I'm butchering that. But she transfers in from Southwestern after having a solid season on defense, listed as center in our setup here, but will be interesting to see how they're used, how they settle in. I was able to watch some film from some games that they had against like Grand Canyon and I believe Arizona State. This offense looks competent. This defense looks capable. And so you combine those two things and you should be in a pretty good spot for a good season. Now, who do they have to have a good season against is the next question that someone would ask here. And so their season kicks off, well, not kicks off, but starts on the 14-yard line at Nevada State. That time is to be announced here. But then I think one way that we're going to find out really quickly where Arizona Christian is as a program is on February 28th against Baker at 6 p.m. here. This is a home game, which is very exciting, but this is going to be one of the very few out-of-conference contests that they're going to have the opportunity to compete in, and so we will see exactly where they're at against a program that is a contender, in my opinion. They're then on the road against Benedictine Mesa. Benedictine Mesa, I think, is a team that is set up to potentially stick around or get into power rankings. So once again, going to be very interesting to see how they compete against them before they get a couple of home games back-to-back over the week of the 11th here. One against Ottawa University of Arizona, and then the very next one against Nevada State. Before a 4-game home stretch, they're going to go to California and play in a tournament in Riverside. So they're going to play Hope, they're going to play Simpson, and they're going to play La Sierra before coming back on the 24th in playing Ottawa University of Arizona. And the week does not get much easier here, as on that next day, their first home game in over a week is against Benedictine Mesa. So between the 18th and the 26th, they will be playing in 5 games. So the break that they have down the stretch of March and into early April is going to be much needed, as they do bounce back with a tournament in Arizona this time against Hope, Simpson, and La Sierra. We will see where they are as far as competing for a conference title. I feel pretty good about their chances against some of this competition, but there's a lot of really good athletes here. The question will be whose experience ends up being the most valuable when it comes to this conference here. I think that the likes of Benedictine Mesa is an interesting opponent. I think Simpson is going to be an interesting opponent, and Hope as well. We'll just have to see exactly where this program fares. I'm super excited to check them out and cover them and see what all happens down the stretch of this part of the season. But that is my quick preview, I should say, on Arizona Christian. Like I said, I don't want to say lots of question marks, but question marks for sure, and just things to consider as we head into the season here. Be sure to listen to what we had to say about all of the other programs that we're looking at here. And so that's going to do it for this episode here. Every episode from here on out is going to be all college women's flag football all the time. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that and so much more. Be sure to listen back to our previews. Be sure to listen to our Power Rankings episode where we have the biggest poll that we've ever had. We're super excited to be a part of it, and we are ranking teams across all divisions here, at least if they are varsity sports, D2, D1, D3, JUCO, and obviously the mainstay for years, the NAIA. We're so excited to continue to see this game grow and develop with such a interesting and great poll of both players and coaches and media personnel for this upcoming season. And we're excited, Gino V. Hill, Coach V, and myself, to do these recaps and bring you all of the action here from women's flag football this collegiate season. Be sure to follow us for all of those updates anywhere you listen to podcasts. Be sure to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We also post to YouTube. Turn on notifications for any and all of those. And while you're at it, feel free to follow us on social media and be notified when we post as well on Facebook, on Twitter/X at Playmaker Corner, as well as on Instagram at Playmakers Corner, and on TikTok at Playmakers Corner. My name is Cody Stauffer. I am the co-host of this episode along with my guy, Coach V, and thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.